Good evening and welcome to Law Talk, the show that brings the Constitution, the events of the day, and strict analysis to you each month. My name is James Barrett, and I'm here with Mark Malachowski. And tonight, Mark, I understand we have a guest.
Yes, we're honored tonight to have Janine Derose with us as a guest. Janine is the executive director of the Libertarian Party of Sacramento County, and she's also a candidate for state senator of District 6. So when is the primary for District 6, Janine?
That's going to be in June 2018.
Okay, and where exactly is District 6?
District 6 actually is where our capital is located. So Sacramento City, West Sac, and some of the surrounding areas.
Okay, my understanding is that you're with the Libertarian Party?
That's correct.
Okay, and so how long have you worked with the Libertarian Party?
I've worked with the Libertarian Party since about 2013.
Okay, and why did you choose that party rather than the Republicans or the Democrats?
I didn't feel like the platform of the Republicans and Democrats really resonated with me, and when I learned about the Libertarian Party, it meshed with my beliefs already. So that was the first time I registered for a party.
Okay, and my understanding is you have some background as an auditor. Can you tell us a little bit about what you did on that?
Yeah, so for the bulk of my career, I worked as an auditor, State of California, Department of Education, ironically. And in that role, I got to see firsthand the prevalence of fraud, waste, and abuse, and such a small amount of the money actually went towards direct services to children, and it started becoming a bigger question for me about how we were allocating resources.
Can I ask you a follow-up on that? When you talk about the majority went to somewhere else, what percentage of the money that came in for the students actually got to the students?
The last time I did the analysis, it was about 8 cents on the dollar went to direct services, and the rest of it is going to administration.
Well, when you say administration, there must have been different layers of administration.
Yes.
It's not just 92 cents goes to some
one
group. So how many different layers of administration are there in the California school system?
Well, you have the district and the layers on the local level, and then you also have the layers within the state level, and then you also have a federal Department of Education. So depending on which dollars you're talking about, they go to different places, and then the levels of oversight on each of those dollars is dependent on where they originate from.
Okay, so what about the students? Is 8 cents for every dollar going to the students sufficient for an education?
Well, that's direct services, so you're talking about the people who work directly with the kids. So if you're wanting a better education for your children, you want the bulk of that money going towards direct services. So in the private school where my kids attend, the majority of their budget goes to direct services. Very small amounts go to administration, and that creates a better education, and they're testing way higher, their reading levels are way higher. I mean, you can see it's an anecdotal example, but you can look across the United States and see examples like this where they operate much better.
So with that, excuse me, Mark, with that background, is that what kind of led you to try to make a change in the world of politics?
I felt like as an auditor, even if we find people millions of dollars for more waste and abuse, not so many fraud cases because they're a lot harder to prove, it was a drop in the bucket, and it really didn't make a huge impact. And you're talking about years and years these programs run, and you're only auditing for a year or two maximum. So that was kind of the beginning of me looking at the landscape and not being okay with it. But what actually got me into it was health. I was researching how to care for my family and how to be the healthiest human being I can be. And I couldn't figure out why the state had a stake in the choices that I made for me and my family.
Okay, so having some background in government and looking at the politics as you see it from a libertarian perspective, does it seem to you that the state of California has some fiscal mismanagement going on?
Yes.
And can you give me some idea of what makes you think that, or what you see about that?
I think most of us can agree there's fiscal mismanagement and misallocation of funding. And I'm not even talking about the outright theft cases. We're seeing across the board in California mismanagement of funds, and the legislators are not keeping an eye out the way that they're supposed to. They're supposed to keep an eye on how our tax dollars are spent.
So you think a legislator that's in Sacramento, do you think that they pinch pennies and they're as frugal and they're as careful as they spend the public money as a working person would be spending the family funds?
No, they're not incentivized to be. And I'm not trying to lay blame, but the incentive structure is completely the opposite. As a matter of fact, if you don't completely spend your budget, you're penalized and you don't get as much money the next year. They're not incentivized to provide the best product to their customers.
Okay, and do you think, okay, so when the politicians say, look, we need a certain amount of money to do this great public thing, you're saying sometimes the money doesn't actually go to that great public good?
I would say often it doesn't go to what we're being told it goes to, and I would also say that rarely what we're told is what actually happens.
Now, Jim, didn't you have some questions about this new tax coming in November 1st?
Yeah, I understand that the state of California, the population in the state of California has been imposed with a new tax, and it was pushed through rather abruptly and with a variety of methods to buy votes. And wouldn't that be SB 1, the 12 cents a gallon? But it's more than 12 cents a gallon. Can you tell me what SB 1 really is?
Well, we're already paying a significant amount of taxes every time we buy gas, and with our car registration and all these things that were supposed to go towards fixing the roads. The roads aren't fixed. They didn't do what they were supposed to do with the money. And now they want more money, and we're supposed to trust that they're going to do what they say they're going to do with the money. So I don't believe that it's going to pan out the way that they are spinning it. On top of that, we're seeing about $1 that goes towards different taxes in every gallon of gas once this goes through.
It seems to me that the roads in California have been pretty bad. I mean, San Francisco's terrible, but I think statewide the roads have been pretty bad. Now, I know a little bit about maintaining roads. You're supposed to oil them and gravel them. It seems like they're not doing the maintenance, so the roads deteriorate instead of lasting 20 years, might last 6 years, and then you have a much greater problem that's much more expensive, more extensive. So it seems like they're almost intentionally letting the roads go bad. And at first I was thinking, well, the lobbyists for the people who sell axles and wheels must be really good in Sacramento. But now I'm thinking, well, maybe that was just to get people ready for this new tax. So they go, oh, we got to pay whatever. Well, let's say you have some auditing. So we're paying about how much in taxes per gallon now in California?
After they changed this in November, which, by the way, they wanted to change it in November so we wouldn't notice. So after they change it in November, it'll be almost $1.
Okay, so let's say if you have, so that's 12 cents a gallon for gas and $20 cents a gallon for diesel, which I guess raises the price of everything because everything moves by diesel truck. So if you have a 15-gallon tank, how much does that come to a month, do you think? What are we talking about for if you have like 5 tanks a month? Something like
that's
75?
about 75, yeah.
Yeah, about 75. So that's almost $1,000 a year is what we're paying in taxes. That seems like quite steep for your gas tax. Now, where did the money go that was supposed to go to fix the roads before that never fixed the roads?
Well, so you can ask me that, and I can tell you what I've heard. In actuality, once they start moving the money around, pinning down the dollars and where they're actually going is very difficult. They're having some funny accounting. So if they have something that's meant to be for this purpose and they move it into the general, and then it like goes to, it just evaporates into whatever cause is coming out of the general fund. So I've heard that it went to some programs that people aren't happy about. That's besides the point. It shouldn't have gone to anything but what it was for.
Well, I was under the impression that the transportation fund was supposed to be a lockbox, basically. We know that's not true, but they've been taxing us dramatically at the gas pump for at least 30 years, and it's been getting worse and worse, and then we have the boutique gases, and so everything that we've been affected by in the state of
Oh yeah,
California.
there's 12 cents boutique. You're right. Yeah, because we live in California.
Oh my God, we got to have a boutique gas, right? But anyway, so the problem is,
So we have designer gas.
We have designer gas.
There you go.
And
designer
it's
gas.
very special.
In fact, you go down to Rodeo Drive in Beverly Hills, you can get the real designer gas. There's gas stations down there that give you gold pumps. But anyway, what's happening here is that the lockbox for transportation taxes has been raided by the general fund, hasn't it?
Well, yeah, that's exactly what happened. But there's no such thing as lockbox in government funding, and it kind of reminds me of the Parks District or the Parks Department and the total fraudulent behavior that happened where it was like stockpiled money. I mean, California budget and the departments are so huge at this point that you can't even track the dollars anymore. And so people are actually able to stockpile money without detection for many, many years. And so and then you look at the role of an auditor. You ask me, can I go into the legislature and audit what they're doing? What we see happening almost universally in California departments, the role of the auditors being placed in a position where they cannot be effective. In other words, they have a thumb over their activities. So if you're talking about anything internal to the department, or even we had one where the subject of the audit was a major donor and fundraiser for the current politician in charge of our department. We were hands off until the new elected came in.
Who are some of the big 5 auditing firms with Deloitte? Who are some of the big firms? I mean, the private firms. Couldn't we pass a bill that said we want to hire? Yeah, Deloitte. Can we hire them and say, here, audit the state of California?
They're hired for a lot of functions, and boy, we're paying them big bucks, even though you have audit staff. Because when you're talking about a private organization, they can manage your staff how they see fit. You're talking about public employees, it's managed by the union. And even if you have people who aren't productive or aren't meeting criteria, et cetera, or aren't performing in the way that you need them to in order to be effective, you can't really do much about it. It's
But
very
I mean, what if you had a
difficult.
bill that said we're going to hire an independent auditing firm to audit and just give a report, where'd all the money go? Because the taxpayer would like to know, I paid $1,000 last year for my gas tax. Where did the money end up? Okay, it got spread along these 20 things. Is there any way you could track it? Or you're saying once in the general fund, it's gone. It's impossible to track.
There are ways you can track it. I believe that anything's possible if you can kind of like figure out who to talk to, who would know. But I've actually had school districts where they give me their report for the year and they just put in one line item with the funding that they'd received, and it was just one line item for their total amount, and it said salaries.
Okay.
So tell me where that went.
Well, I have a question. You are running for state senate in the 6th district.
Correct.
Are you going to try and make your voice heard in that drain the swamp concept in Sacramento?
We're going to be as noisy as possible, and starting with, I think that every endeavor has baby steps, right? So what I'm focused on right now is being as obnoxious as possible in campaigning, disrupting what's happening currently. So we have a whole 13 months or so to disrupt the legislation that is in progress, right? So if we start challenging their incumbents, the incumbents that are sitting there taking actions that we don't like, we challenge them, we start taking their votes away, they start changing their decisions.
And so you're running against a Richard Pan.
That's correct.
In your district. Is there a bigger field than that, or is he? How many people right now are contenders for your position?
So we just had it. So it's very, very abnormal for a candidate to be in campaign mode this early on. But we're planning to run a significant ground game where we're actually going to win is actually shaking hands, talking to people, letting them know what their senators are up to, because not very many people are doing that in Sacramento.
The grassroots.
Exactly.
Going back to the ground.
Exactly.
And so
there's another candidate who jumped on board because of, I think a little bit because of my activities, but also because he's really passionate about a lot of the issues in our district. And he seems to be a fantastic guy. I've gotten to talk to him a couple times. So I'm really excited that 2 candidates in this time of year is going to cause a little bit of attention to our
Okay,
district.
and so Richard Pan, is he a Democrat, a Republican, a Libertarian? What's his background?
He's a Democrat.
He's a Democrat, so he would be for raising taxes then, as a rule.
He's voted to, yeah.
Okay, so has there been any indication with Richard Pan that he's ever tried to not raise taxes or cut taxes?
I would have to go back and look at every bill he's worked on. What I've focused mostly on with him is his healthcare legislation, and most recently the SB 18 bill, which really started cutting away at parental rights in like a disturbing way. Basically, the language was, if you're not raising your children in an optimal manner per our guidelines, CPS can take your children.
Okay, so Richard Pan, do you know what his what his view is on the gas tax?
He voted yes.
So he's for the gas tax, and so I guess there's a proposition that might come up against the gas tax, so he'd be against that proposition if there was something to repeal that. How would you feel about repealing the gas tax?
I think we should repeal a lot of taxes.
Well, the one thing I know about the gas tax is there's some vague lines in there about other transportation projects. And you know, in this state, under Governor Brown, his little pet project is the bullet train. Now, other transportation projects, he's not funded on the bullet train completely.
Right.
This is $5 billion a year. Is there any restriction in the bill that you know that says the bullet train cannot get the gas tax?
Well, why would they write that in? That's every effort has gone to making that bullet train happen. I don't know what the fascination is, but let's just step back a second. Why would $5 billion be categorized as other? Isn't that a little bit disturbing?
It is disturbing. And that's why when I read that bill and I saw how vague it was in that one area, it's like saying we're going to fix the roads. Well, that's nice. The sun rises in the east. We're all going to fix the roads. And if you look back at the East Coast, it was always, when every election was, fix the potholes. And so elect me and I'll fix the potholes. Well, Governor Brown has gone back to the old East Coast style. Hey, I'm going to fix the potholes, so give me more money. Keep me in power. Keep my gang in power. So what can you do when you're running and then when you are elected to turn this around?
So my best effort's going to be towards shining a spotlight on what's happening, and that can be done in many forms. It's so blatant at this point that you almost sound like you're making it up when you say how bad the situation is. But the more people we talk to, I just took his bill that he wrote and I showed people and they were horrified. That's a very strong campaign piece.
When you say him, you're talking about Richard Pan,
Yeah.
this education vote that basically taking rights away from parents and
The
putting under a
SB 18,
bureaucracy that's run kind of like by a massive
People get
bureaucracy.
touchy when you try to steal their kids. You know, that's something where we can relate to people. Gas tax, you have to go, you have to pay for tax. You can relate to people on that. Some of these more ethereal issues, they just don't resonate with it, and they're just trying to live their life, work hard, and make a living for their family.
What group of people in California are the most affected by this? Isn't it the poor? And
It's the people they champion.
the people they champion. Aren't they the ones that are getting penalized the most because it's the highest percentage of their income?
Yes, but I think we knew long ago that that whole thing was a charade. So
Oh, and also another thing, 20 cents per gallon for diesel, food, all
your
everything
shipping.
you buy at the store arrives on a truck. So of course, if the trucking expense goes up, that's going to increase the cost of every single
It's
item.
systemic, and,
Yeah.
and it will be systemic. And then you see, inflation's out of control. They want to raise the minimum wage. All these issues that really make an inhospitable environment in California. And to me, I have to
Well,
step
not
back.
for a massive bureaucracy who embezzles most of the money or whatever, who sidetracks most of the money for their own use.
But long term,
But for people who are working for a living,
it's not actually healthy because so one of the things that disturbed me most about California, and I love California. I was born and raised in Siskiyou County. This is like my home state, right?
Right.
But I was reading Investment Magazine, and it said, don't invest in California property because for every $1.65 every dollar coming into the economy, $1.65 is going out to people who are dependent on the system.
Right.
That's disturbing. That's an unsustainable environment.
You have a massive, bureaucracy, a massive welfare state that has endlessly needy. It always needs more. It's never enough. And, that's their stated, what's the budget? It's never enough. It's infinity, basically.
But at some point, you got to settle up.
Well, no. I mean, the thing is, there's not to the people who are okay, like say if you're a bookie, you take a percentage off every bet. You don't care if the guy who's gambling goes broke. You're taking a percentage off every bet.
So, I care about California.
Well, yeah, but I'm just saying if you're a politician and you're raising taxes, moving most of the money to a special project that gets you reelected, and you're taking, like you said, they're taking 98 cents out of every dollar, kind of putting it in their pocket, and 8 cents goes to the kids, or 8 cents goes to the roads, or 8 cents goes to the public good. They're still making 92 cents on every transaction. So, the poor guy who's the poor taxpayer who's just being really hit so hard, that's not their problem. So I think if you have the ideas of how you can do some auditing on this and what the true costs are and what the taxes are being paid, I think the taxpayer would really appreciate, having this outline pretty in a straightforward, simple fashion of, where this money is going, where your tax money is going. Because, I mean, a lot of people believe that when they pay their taxes that this money is going for a good cause. Or at least they believe that when they vote for the candidate.
Yeah,
well,
and that's the worst part.
I was going to say the good cause in California seems to be helping the people that don't want to work. And I say that I say that generally, but unfortunately, this amount of money, the social good of California, I know we're a social justice state. I know that we have to look out for everybody. But unless the state is going to move to socialism, do you have any theory in your mind that this state is moving in a direction where anyone that doesn't want to work is going to get a check?
Well, let me flip this around on you. So when you say, not you, but when you say, I care about people and I want them to do well, and then you create an environment where it's not sustainable, he's saying, they're just skimming a little bit off the top.
92%.
But they're just diverting some funding. They're just changing, this little piece of the law that has real consequences and it has a real effect. So you can say we have benevolent California that just cares about people and wants to take care of them, but in actuality, what you're doing is you're creating people who can't function on their own, because in order to get a job at $15 an hour, you never have the a leeway to build up from high school or wherever your education level is to get to that $15. So the people who are getting those jobs are weeding out people who really need to work, right? And then they can't build up from there. So every one of these policies actually ends up harming the very people they profess to help. So from my perspective, no, it's not benevolent. And socialism doesn't help anyone. It actually ends up harming. So,
well, yeah, there's also a problem if you get a job, you lose your benefits, and you make more with your benefits than you would at your startup job. But that kind of reminds me of, there's another socialist utopia that's kind of been in the news lately in Venezuela. And the president of Venezuela, I guess, Maduro, was out touring some of his cooperatives because they have social justice there, and it's a socialist utopia. It's the perfect socialist state there, and he's out touring one of these farms, and he asks the farmer how things are doing. The farmer goes, oh, the cooperative's going great. And he goes, well, what do you guys grow out here? He says, we're growing corn. And he says, well, how's your corn crop? And the farmer goes, well, if we took all the ears of corn we grew last year, we piled them up, it would reach the toes of God. And President Maduro goes, well, this is Venezuela. This is socialism. There's no God in Venezuela. The farmer says, that's okay. There's no ears of corn either. So, you have the socialist utopia, whatever you want to call it. What do they call it? Social justice. Which is basically, I take 90% of everything you make, and then you thank me for taking your money. But I think that people really, truly believe when they vote for these things that the money is going to go where the politicians promise it's going to go. And it turns out that's not the case. So how do you broadcast that to people? How do you show that?
Well, I can tell you right now what's happening. First of all, the people don't vote where the money's going to go. 120 people out of 39 million make decisions for everyone. Our representation is completely skewed in California. LA counties, the worst example. They've got like about 2 million per seat that they're supposed to represent just in a supervisorial position. So you're talking about 2 million people. District I'm running for, there's about 500,000 registered voters. So tell me how I'm supposed to represent all of them adequately.
Well,
the only way
let's say, look at those. You say you would be representing about 1 million people.
it's about 500,000 registered.
Okay, so about 1 million people you're representing. How would you think if they were going to vote yes or no on this gas tax? How do you think that million would vote?
You have such a diverse population of people, and because a lot of people don't even know what the bills say, a lot of the legislators don't even know what the bills say.
They don't
to tell
read
you the
them, do they?
truth. Not always. So everybody is focused elsewhere, and our California government is a runaway train. There's his train. He's already got it. It's a runaway train. No one's focused on what's actually
runaway
happening.
bullet train.
That's it. Well, I have a question. Do you know, he's a Republican assemblyman from Orange County, Travis Allen?
He's fantastic.
Okay,
Yeah.
well, Travis Allen is pushing for a initiative to repeal the gas tax, and right now he's generating. He needs 365,000 signatures to meet the ballot in 218. And so what I'm looking at is, you say he's a fantastic. So does he understand that this is a runaway train? Do you think he's going to have any capability of getting an initiative on the ballot? Because once it gets to the people of the state of California do not like another gas tax. The vast majority, I think the last I heard was almost 76%, the people were opposed to this. But that didn't matter because no one listened
And
to
also, it seems to me that this thing kind of cropped up unexpectedly.
out of nowhere.
I mean,
man,
I
it came
didn't-
out in December and they passed it
no, but
already.
I didn't,
Boom.
Yeah.
But I didn't hear a lot of discussion in the press about this, or there was not a lot of debate about this. Did you notice any? I didn't notice it until it was kind of already done.
The first time it came on my radar was when SAC-B of all newspapers actually came out with an article about them bribing the legislators to vote yes.
So they gave him $1 billion to.
SAC-B is
Yeah.
like so non-vocal on.
But that's only $1 billion. I mean, that's chump change for
Well,
these
no, the
guys,
problem
right?
is they needed 2/3 votes.
Well, I
and
wanna
there were
answer your
several that were
question.
holding out.
Yes.
And what did they do to those people that were holding out and wouldn't give them the vote?
Well, behind closed doors. But I want to answer your question because I've actually worked
No, but
on.
I mean, didn't they get hundreds of millions of dollars for their pet projects in
Yeah.
their districts? Okay,
Yeah.
so basically they had some holdout votes, and basically they're spending other people's money, and they're not spending other people's money or the taxpayers' money on what they say they're going to spend it, and so they had so much of this money they decided, okay, well we can pay off these guys to vote for this thing to make the 2/3.
Right.
Well,
Mark, I think...
but some people actually voted against it, right? We had some people. Was there some people in the legislature voted against it, right?
Okay, well, I think what we ought to do is invite her back because I think we want to hear how her campaign is going.
Yeah.
And I wanted to thank everyone that's with us tonight because this is a very important topic that the people of the state of California need to understand. I know for myself, I really appreciate your time to come to our show.
Absolutely.
Thanks,
Thank you
Janine.
for having me.
It's great having you on the show.
And I will tell you that we're behind you. Anything we can do to help you out, we'll be there for you.
And then when they build the bullet train, we can take the bullet train
we can take the
right
bullet
from
train.